Field of 68 After Dark show, the only place that you need to be for college hoops every single night. My name is Rob Dauster. We are presented by our partners over at Bet River Sportsbook, and I am joined by my lovely, lovely co-hosts, the one and only Jim Root, the star of the Three-Man Weave, who hosts our Best Bets show every single day at 1 o'clock during the week at 11:15 p.m. Eastern time. 11:15 a.m. Eastern time during the week. And I'm also joined by Jeff Goodman, who we're going to try to limit how much he's allowed to speak during the show. Just so you guys know, starting on Monday, every single night, we are going to be on Sirius XM, channel 84. That's the ESPNU station. So make sure that you tuned in there. Gentlemen, how are we doing today, man? It was a great day of college basketball. Jim, what's up, man? Welcome on to the show.
Yeah, it's good. You got me in prime time Saturday, big time slate, but it is shoehorned before the serious deal starts. I see what you're doing. You're giving me a little handout before the big time really starts. I get it. I'm okay with it.
No, this is a big one. No, don't sell yourself short here. This is a big time spot, and there's a lot of pressure on you in this show, Jim. A lot.
Hey, I'll carry you both. I'll do what I can.
All right. So the way that I want to start off this show tonight is I want to get your biggest storyline from each of you from today's games. We had 6 teams that were unranked, knockoff ranked opponents. We had a couple really big performances from some of the blue bloods. We saw Auburn thrive. We saw Gonzaga thrive. We're going to have a conversation about who the number 1 team in the country should be on Monday morning. But first and foremost, Jim, I'm going to you first on this one. What was your biggest Saturday storyline?
Maybe it's not the biggest, but we're saving a couple for the rest of the show. I'm going with the question marks that continue to surround this Texas team. I just don't know that they're legitimate right now. They haven't really gotten things figured out. The cohesion has not come together the way they were hoping. They go to Hilton Magic and they kind of get dominated. I mean, it wasn't like a blowout, but they were down 10 basically the entire second half. Iowa State, the team that was picked dead last in the coaches poll unanimously, which Chris Beard tried to refute in the post-game press conference. He said he did not vote Iowa State last, but the results are the results. I'm just a little worried that the Longhorns are not where we thought they would be at this point, and maybe they're just going to be the most dangerous 8 or 9 seed in the history of the NCAA tournament. Is that where we're headed? Possibly.
In Beard, I trust. That's all I have to say. He will figure it out. It's slower than usual. I know everybody says, well, he's underachieved the last few years. I get it. It's still his first year at Texas. He threw a bunch of dudes together, transfers, holdovers, one of which had won an NCAA tournament game in the past. So I actually think if you had told the Texas Longhorns after they fired Shaka that they would have a team with this talent that is actually relevant, they probably would have taken it. Anyway, all right, mine, the Kentucky Wildcats. How do we not go with they are relevant. Like they finally have beaten somebody, because beating Carolina by 100, I'm not sure they was beating somebody. You know, this to me, they blasted a ranked Tennessee team, and they didn't just blast them. And I know we'll get into it later, so I'm not going to go deep into it right now, but we saw Ty Washington and Severe Wheeler not just coexist, but thrive together. And that 2-point guard lineup is what I envisioned. This was the Kentucky team that I ranked 4th in the preseason. This was the one that I thought could cut down the nets in New Orleans.
Yeah, we're going to talk plenty about Kentucky. Just real quick before we do, my biggest storyline, number 1 loss, man. Twice in a week at home, the number 1 team in the country lost. The Baylor Bears went down to Oklahoma State. They almost fought back. They were down by as many as 17 points in that game. And then Adam Flagler had a couple of ugly turnovers down the stretch. That might have cost me a few shekels, but it is what it is. But we'll get into that in a little bit. I want to start with Kentucky, because I do think that story is the most interesting one. I'm going to throw some stats at you guys, okay? Kentucky won that game 107-79. Tennessee, coming in, was ranked as the number 2 defense in all of college basketball on KenPom. Goodman, I know you don't like KenPom. Wow. You got a couple of KenPom.
No, I don't dislike KenPom. Can I set the record straight with one line on that? I don't like KenPom in the first month or so of the season because it's too predictive. Starting now, I'm going to start quoting KenPom more than anybody on the planet because I'm a believer now.
You won't. No,
yes.
You won't.
Yes.
No, you won't. Anyway, yes. Kentucky became just the second team this season to shoot 65% from the floor and 60% from 3 against the Division I opponent. The only other team that did it was UMBC against American. Kentucky did it against the number 2 defense in college basketball. This was the first time that somebody had a 60-90 game in the SEC since the 1990s. And the 67.9% that the Kentucky Wildcats shot from the floor was the best that someone has shot from the floor in a Coach Cal game this season. Goodman, talk to me about these Wildcats. You took a little longer to come onto the bandwagon than some of us, but
I did
they're
because
good,
they hadn't beaten anybody. I know they had beaten some teams and blasted them. Again, Carolina, Western Kentucky. They played well of late for the most part, but they didn't have a resume win until today, and they've got one. And again, I just wanted to see Ty beat Ty, and it took him, honestly, Severe Wheeler getting hurt in order to do that, because you were able to put the ball in his hands more instead of just playing him at the 2. Now he became more of a 1 the last couple of games. And to be honest, he got his confidence back. I don't think he had it through a lot of this year. Now he's got that swagger back. You got those 2. And the best part of today for Kentucky, Oscar didn't have to dominate. What do you have? 9 points. He had 9 points. Davion Mintz made shots. This is why I love this Kentucky team. I think Ty is their best player, their most talented player, but you've got multiple guys who can make shots from the wing. When is the last time we could say that about a John Calipari team? It's been forever, but you got Ty. You've obviously got Mintz. You got Kellen Grady. Those are 3 guys. They've got experience. They've got everything on this team that they need, but they hadn't really shown it until today.
Yeah, I think if you had said Kentucky shot 65% from the field, they'd be like, well, Sheway probably went 18 of 20 or something, right? Like he just dominated the paint. That wasn't the case. You mentioned Ty getting his swagger back. I think it helped Mintz too. Like he became needed for them rather than just an accessory. And that just kind of helped him find his role. I love what Calipari is doing with this team. This is the second fastest offensive possession length he's had since he's taken over at Kentucky. The only other one that was faster was De'Aaron Fox and Malik Monk. He let those guys go.
Yeah.
And he's doing it with Wheeler and Washington, and that gets them a lot easier shots in transition. You get quick buckets, you get open threes for Kellen Grady in transition. He can set up and knock those down. I just like the way that they've infused transition into the attack, and Sheway's mobile enough to get down there and win the glass, even in transition. It's a harmonious attack, and when they're as hot as they were today, no one can stop them, including the number 2 defense.
Yeah, for me, there's 2 reasons why I think that it really makes sense for them to run as much as possible. One, Oscar Sheway is going to be able to rebound as well as 2 different guys, right? Like you don't have to worry about having everybody go to the offensive glass when you have the dude that is literally the best defensive rebounder in all of college basketball on the floor with you. And 2, when you're in transition, that is where Severe Wheeler thrives. And where he struggles is going to be in the half court because he can't really shoot. And what you need are shooters to be able to pull people away from Oscar Sheway. If you want to build this team around the big fella, you got to be able to create space for him inside. And I don't know if you can do that with Severe Wheeler trying to play a half court game. Let him run, man. That's where he thrives. Let me ask you guys this. They gave up 79 points to a Tennessee team that is not great offensively. They allowed Tennessee to shoot 53.4% from the floor. Tennessee hit 11 for 23 from 3. Jim, I'm going to you first on this one. Are you worried about Kentucky defensively?
Maybe a little. I mean, there's still not like a great individual defender team, especially on the wing. That's not really what Kellen Grady's best at. And if you want to throw Jacob Toppin out there, then you're maybe taking a slight hit offensively. But sometimes there are just games like this where you're going up and down, your offense is really clicking, and maybe it hurts the defense a little because you know you can go back and score right away the other time. I feel like I've been in games like that where it just turns into a shootout. So, yeah, not a great performance against a Tennessee offense that has really struggled in some big games. But I think the story is more the offense and the fact that we know that Kentucky now has that gear. That should be the thing that's scary to me, Jeff.
But Jeff, let me ask you this. Are they good enough to beat out Auburn for an SEC title? Do you think we're at that point yet?
Hell yeah. Absolutely. I mean, they don't have anybody that can match up with Jabari, right? I mean, that's going to be the issue, but I don't know if Auburn's small guards. I don't know if Auburn's small guards either are going to be able to match up with like Ty. I just think Ty is still scratching the surface of what he's going to become. I really believe that. And I believe you're going to see the ball in his hands more. Again, his confidence, you could see the difference. Trust me. I mean, I've watched this team enough over the first, 2.5 months, even in the preseason, I think he's got that back. So, yes, I think Kentucky is right there with Auburn. I know right now they're not. You have to put Auburn at 1 or 2, and we'll get into that debate here soon. But ultimately, I think Kentucky's still coming. I still think they've got a ways to go, and their ceiling, because they have so many guys that really haven't played with one another. I mean, if you think about it, Severe, again, he's been hurt. You got these transfers, freshmen, guys, and now they got the holdovers are role guys. That's what they should be. Yes. That's what they should be on this team, and that's what they are now.
Yep, I agree 100%. I don't know if I would say that they're able to compete with Auburn for an SEC regular season title. I just think Auburn is that good, which actually you mentioned number 1 versus number 2 debate. Let's get into it right now, man. Auburn knocked off Ole Miss on the road, 80-71. They were down by as many as I think 15 in the first half, came back and won. They are now 16-1 overall and 5-0 in the SEC. Gonzaga, they put up 115 on Santa Clara. They've scored 110 points in 3 straight games. They are 14-2 overall, 3-0 in the WCC, and they blew out BYU. Jim, you have an AP vote. I'm giving it to you right now. On Monday morning, who are you voting number 1?
I'm honored. I'm putting Auburn there. I know that's probably going to stir some issues and cause some controversy, but their only losses in double overtime. Crazy game.
Who beat them?
Yeah,
Who beat them?
Oh man, I don't know. This team up in the Northeast. Can't remember the school. Good. I'm glad you got that in there. I hope you feel good about yourself.
I do.
Yeah. But honestly, I've been just mega impressed with Auburn. And to me, they have all the pieces. Like getting Flanagan back has given them kind of a wing connector, the versatile athlete playmaker that they didn't have to go with the small guards and the versatile bigs that they had. So now they have him back. They have the shot blocking. They have some shooting. Wendell Green's emerged as like a key star at point guard. I'm going to give them the slight nod right now, especially because they just went to Alabama and kind of took it to them. And that's an Alabama team that crushed Gonzaga up in Seattle. So I'm giving Auburn that slight nod. Maybe transitive property shouldn't apply, but I'm giving it to them here.
Yeah, I mean, listen, to me, this one's close. It's super close. And normally I would be the guy that would just go up against that really, really, really annoying fan base that is the Auburn Tigers. But I'm going to give it to Auburn too. I'm going Auburn number 1, boys. Auburn number 1. I don't know where my Auburn hat is. Is it back there? No, it's not back there. It's on the floor over there. But whatever the case, I'm going Auburn number 1 because I think they played better recently. And I think one of the wins that we really started to kind of gauge Gonzaga was that Texas win. And now, like Jim said, Texas hasn't done shit. They haven't done anything. So to me, that one you could throw out the window for right now. I think Auburn's, look at Murray State. They beat Murray State. Murray State pounded the crap out of Belmont at Belmont today. That's a pretty good Murray State team. They beat LSU. I know LSU lost today to Arkansas, but I think their body of work justifies them being number 1. And man, I'll tell you what, when Wendell Green has been way better than I thought, than Bruce Pearl thought. He admitted that on the Goodman and Jim podcast that he wasn't sure how good Green was. And man, that kid has big cojones.
I mean, that was the thing about why people were down on Auburn, right? They were worried about the point guard play. And it wasn't like that staff was out here telling everybody, no, you're wrong. Our point guards are going to be great. Right. I think that they privately had some of their own concerns about what their guards were going to be. In terms of what the resume is, if we're looking at it right now, Gonzaga is 4-2 against quad 1 opponents and 1-0 against quad 2 opponents. Auburn is 4-1 against quad 1 and 6-0 against quadrant 2. If we were doing a bracket right now, there is very little justification for Gonzaga being over Auburn. If you're talking about who would win right now on a neutral court, I think you would probably have to say Auburn, just because I think they have good enough guards to be able to kind of take away some of what Gonzaga wants to do. I think they can force turnovers. I think they can pressure people and make Gonzaga uncomfortable. It's going to be one of those things where you play 11 times and it goes to the 11th game. And for the record, can we schedule that game? Is it too late to make that happen? Can you put Bruce Pearl and Mark Few on the thread right now? Say we need this game to happen.
I'm going to do it right now.
Yeah, do it right now. See what
I'm going to do it right. No. You think I'm kidding? I'm going to do it right now.
I know you're not kidding. There are probably people that are listening to this right now that think that you're kidding. You're not. You're doing it right now. Anyway, I think I would probably go with Auburn in that spot. But like I said, I mean, you're kind of you're nitpicking there, right?
Rob, I'll be the annoying gambling guy that says Gonzaga would be a slight favorite on a neutral. I think that would be the case.
No, and I would love that because I would be all over Auburn right there. And look, Auburn right now on KenPom, which is where all of these books kind of get their a lot of like these places set their lines from based off of those numbers. Auburn is only 9th on KenPom right now. And do you know where Gonzaga is ranked, Jim?
Numero uno.
So that is definitely something that would factor in as well. All right. This is the Field of 68 After Dark for people that are listening. My name is Rob Dauster. I'm joined right now by Stadium Insider Jeff Goodman and Jim Root from the 3-Man Weave. You can follow him on Twitter at Second Chance Points. You can watch us on YouTube. Please like, rate, review, do all of those nice things. It really does help us out. You can also listen to us on SiriusXM channel 84, the ESPNU station, beginning on Monday night. All right, guys, we got to talk a little bit about the Blue Bloods because they rolled today. Duke blew out NC State after getting down early. Kansas blew out West Virginia after getting down early. And Kentucky rolled over Tennessee. Goodman, I'm going to you first on this one. We can't bring up Kentucky because we just talked about them enough. But who are you more impressed by, Duke or Kansas, with the wins that they got today?
I don't know if I was more impressed with either. I think there were certain things of each team that impressed me, obviously, and I think it was the bigs. I think when you look at it, you look at the bigs on both teams and say to yourself, all right, Kansas desperately needs David McCormick. So I think that was more important. David McCormick and Jalen Wilson both having big games, that's more important to me than anything that happened for Duke. I know Mark Williams is capable of those games. I also know that the wealth is spread on that Duke team. Trevor Keels played better today. That was a good sign. Passed the ball, made some threes. He's had a rough go since really the Champions Classic to some extent. But to me, David McCormick is the absolute key for Kansas. Think about this. Last year, the first 10 games of the year, he averaged 9.5 points a game. The rest of the year, he averaged 15.5. This year, he was at 8 points a game before today. So he's got to turn it on because especially with the way Bill Self plays and the way that he loves to utilize his big, and there's nobody better, right, at teaching entry passes to their guards, no matter who their guards are. Somehow they always get the ball to the big in a place where they can score. And that's been the case with McCormick. McCormick just can't damn score half the time, right? I mean, he comes up short when he's 5 feet away on that turnaround. Well, he was making it tonight. If he can get his swagger back, and Jalen Wilson, who missed the first 3 games and just hasn't kind of found his footing yet, if he can get back and they can get Remy Martin back healthy, I still think this team can be a contender for certainly a Final Four and a national title.
Yeah, it seems like Self has been trying to push every button possible with McCormick, with the benching him and doing all different rotations. And I think that's his acknowledgement of how important it is that McCormick finds his groove and gets going. He knows Lightfoot is consistent, but he doesn't have the upside, the ceiling that McCormick offers. Rob, one thing with Duke that I wanted to point out, and we saw it with Shire taking over last game, the Roach to the bench, Keels to the starting point guard spot, going with a bigger lineup. Keels had 9 assists, 2 turnovers today. Griffin's been just a total revelation for them lately now that he's healthier. That, I think, changes the level for them. They can play big, they can play small.
Right. Doesn't everybody love this, Jim? Like,
yeah.
who wouldn't like Roach should have been on the bench. No disrespect to him, but Roach belongs as your backup point guard. That he's great as that. He is. What are you laughing at, Rob?
He's accepting the role. That's good.
No disrespect, but this dude sucks.
No, they've got 5 guys. Now they're starting 5 dudes that could all be drafted in the first round.
I'm just laughing because whenever you say no disrespect,
I know.
But you know something massively disrespectful is about to come out of Goodman's mouth, and it always
usually it's a lot worse.
But you're right. You're right though, because it creates another threat. Like, I don't think that you need a natural point guard on the floor when you have guys that can pass like Wendell Moore and that can pass like Paolo Banchero and that can create like Trevor Keels, right? Like, you have 3 different guys that can initiate something in the half court. You don't have to have a possession point guard out there. You don't need it, especially when the 5 guys out there are all going to be first round picks. And I know, Goodman, you're totally against the idea of Trevor Keels being a first rounder, but
no, I'm not totally. No, I'm against him being a lottery pick. Remember, that's what I said to you. I said some people still have him in the lottery. I don't see that. I see him as, being a 25 to 40 guy, to be honest.
When Keels is the point guard and they've got that 5 group, at the Weave, we talk about get off the bus teams. There is no better get off the bus lineup that's terrifying to look at than that 5 group with Williams, Banchero, Keels, Moore. That group is terrifying, and they're just going to bully teams with that 5.
Yeah, you know what I think is, if they can get Joey Baker going, where he can be a guy that could just stand at the 3-point line and make 40% of his open threes, that changes what they can be, because all of a sudden you can comfortably go to lineups where you put Paolo at the 5 and just space everything out. If Joey Baker can be a 40% guy and get you 10, 12, 14 minutes, just kind of giving, AJ Griffin a rest here and giving Wendell Moore a rest there, like, I think that changes what their ceiling could end up being this year. And I think that he ends up being kind of a difference maker. Oddly enough, Joey Baker is the guy that we're talking about with this Duke team. But I
Theo John too. I think Theo John's very important too, coming off the bench, giving him physicality. He was great early in the season, and then he kind of disappeared. He had a good game today. Yeah,
he needed it. Mark, did you see this coming with Mark Williams? Did you know that he was going to be this kind of a rim protector?
I think we knew he was going to be good, but I don't think we knew he was going to be this dominant, especially, Jim, at the beginning of last year when we didn't see him. Remember, like a year ago, they weren't winning, and Case still wasn't playing him until I felt like it was almost like this time of year, late January.
My buddy Matt at the Weave is a Duke fan, and he was screaming like, play Mark Williams, play Mark Williams. He was all about the breakout coming in this year. And he was terrific in that game against Gonzaga here in Vegas. He was awesome shutting down Timmy there. That was kind of like the coming out party. But then 8 blocks today against an NC State team that loves to slash. Like, he just took away the rim from a team that needs to score there. And if he can do that consistently, like, I don't know what you do against the Blue Devils.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting comparison with Auburn and Duke, because they both kind of taken a step forward because of the breakouts of these sophomore guys. And I think that is an example of why college basketball is so balanced this year. In years where you don't have to worry about the isolation of the COVID and having a weird freshman season, I don't know if we get Mark Williams and Walker Kessler back. I think those are 2 guys that really kind of had the advantage of being able to come back for another year. And all of a sudden we see how good those 2 dudes are. Jim, I'm putting you on the spot. You got to pick one, Mark Williams or Walker Kessler right now. Who you got?
I'm going Kessler. He's just got a little more offensive skill to him. Williams is probably slightly better rim. I'm going Kessler, and I'm saying it confidently. Walker Kessler.
Yeah, I think I'm there too. Walker Kessler, I believe he is leading the nation in block percentage. Yeah, he's leading the nation of block percentage on KenPom, and he can also step out and make a 3 if you need him to. You don't want to shoot a lot. He's shooting 16% from 3. We call that the Goodman if you shoot 16% from.
I was at 12.
All right.
Am I
12?
YMCA.
You're a 12% shooter? Attaboy.
YMCA. No, I'm not.
This is for those listening, this is the Field of 68. After Dark, my name is Rob Dauster. I have Stadium Insider Jeff Goodman and Jim Root from the 3-Man Weave with me. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit that like button. Please leave a comment. All that interaction really does help us out. It helps grow the channel. We talked about Kansas. I think at this point, you can probably say that Kansas is, once again, the favorite to win the Big 12, Jim, because Baylor, the number 1 team in all of the land.
Jim, what is he saying? Jim, he's already in 1 week. He's completely changed his tune to now Baylor's got no chance of winning the Big 12.
Did I say that?
They got a chance.
I didn't say that. I think you can comfortably say that Kansas is the favorite because Baylor just lost twice at home. We know how important it is to be able to get those home games. They lost to Oklahoma State and Texas Tech at home. Those are 2 games that if you're going to win this conference, you probably need to be able to get at home. So, Jim, am I crazy? Am I talking crazy? Am I losing my mind? I don't think I'm losing my mind.
No, not at all. I mean, I think you can directly compare it to Kansas squeaking out that win this week against Iowa State at home. Like, that's the kind of game you need to get if you're going to win the conference. And Baylor just had 2 where they weren't able to do it. Like they had it down to a 1-point game, 1-possession game, both times at home in Waco, crowd behind them, and they just couldn't come up with the play to get over the hump. And, I think they were the worthy number 1 beforehand, but that little sequence, not able to find open shots. I mean, like Sohan being out hurts, but that's not affecting the offense. So it's weird to see them struggle to create shots, struggle to hit shots when they get open ones. I think Kansas does nudge ahead just because of the advantage of not having 2 home losses on the ledger.
So I have a take on that, and I'm curious, Jeff. I'm going to throw this to you, and I want to know what you think. I mentioned in the preseason that my biggest concern with Baylor was the fact that they had little guards, right? Like James Akinjo is not all that tall. Adam Flagler is not all that tall. LJ Cryer, not all that tall. Those guys are really good. Yeah. They're not really big. And Oklahoma State and Texas Tech both are long, rangy, athletic, versatile, switch everything, throw different defenses at you. Don't let you win by running your stuff, right? That's kind of what they are defensively. And I think when you have those smaller guards, you run into a situation where all of a sudden, if Adonis Arms, who's 6'6" and 24 years old and completely jacked, is kind of overwhelming some of these guys, they can have a little bit of trouble creating off the bounce. And I think that that's what we saw with these 2 games, is some of the limitations that come with the fact that their guards, who are really good, are also, 6 foot, 6'1".
To me, last year's team was a bunch of MFers. That's the difference to me. It's like last year's team, if they had lost the game, they would have come out in the first 10 minutes today and absolutely taken that team to the woodshed. An Oklahoma State team that has nothing to play for all year, right? They're not playing for a Big 12 tournament. They're not playing for an NCAA tournament. They're banned from both. Last year, Davion Mitchell would not have let that happen. That's my first take, is this team isn't last year's team. Last year's team was also on a mission because the tournament had been shut down the year before and they thought they could win the whole thing. This is a completely different team. They're very good, but they're not at that level of last year in terms of their killer instinct, in my opinion. Number 2, there's no home court advantage in Waco. It's not a home court advantage, guys. In fact, it might be a disadvantage when you compare it to all the other places in the Big 12, right? I mean, Fog Allen, we know what that is, but Iowa State, really good. Kansas State, really good. Like, those are the bottom 2 teams in the league, and they have legitimate home court advantages. Waco, Texas, he doesn't have that. Scott Drew and that team. So, listen, and the most important thing that I haven't said, you know who wasn't on the court the last 9+ minutes? James Akinjo. He was hurt. He was hurt. They don't have another point guard. I'm tired of people saying Adam Flagler's a point guard. He's not. He's an undersized 2. He is not a point guard. They need James Akinjo. Rob Dauster's preseason first-team All-American. He is the most important player on that team. That position is the most important position in college basketball.
And there's a possession late where Flagler had to create and try to kick it out, and he threw it right into the hands of Oklahoma State, and it was like, that's where Akinjo's needed.
Twice. Right. He drove down the lane. They were down by 1. He drove the lane and throws the ball out of bounds. Right. Just
they win if Akinjo's on the court for the last 9.5 minutes. To me, Baylor wins this one. Now, they still lost the other night. Okay. So there's still, yes, I agree with you. I think it's a toss-up between Kansas and Baylor at the end of the day. Now, Baylor's dug themselves one hell of a hole, losing 2 games to teams they shouldn't have lost at home. But I still think when you throw those 2 teams at each other, it's a toss-up in terms of who wins.
Yeah, and I also – the Big 12 is I mean, it's just a buzzsaw, man. Like, there's no we talk about how there's no nights off in the Big 10. Well, that's not necessarily true. There's some teams at the bottom of the Big 10 that are absolutely nights off every time that you play them. That's not the case. Like the team, we talk about KenPom, right? You know what the lowest ranked team right now on KenPom is in the Big 12?
60th, right? Something like
Kansas State is 63rd. TCU is 61st. TCU beat Oklahoma today.
And Kansas State beat Texas Tech.
Like, we were talking about Texas Tech. Like,
that's
this league is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Are you telling me that the worst team in the Big 12 could be the second best team in the ACC today? Is that what you're saying?
Basically.
Hey, I'm not arguing, am I? Do I look like I'm arguing?
Hey, speaking of the ACC, Jeff, we have a lot of people in the chat right now are asking you about Chris Mack and what the hell is going on.
It's brutal. I mean, listen, when I was there in the preseason, I said to him, if you can combine all three of your point guards, you'll have a pretty good point guard. But honestly, like they're good point guards. They're just not great point. They're not Louisville level point guards. And if he doesn't get in the tournament again this year, with all the shit that's happened around that program, and I defended the hell out of him for the Dino Gaudio shit, because to me that was garbage that they suspended him. Complete garbage. It was stupid because he didn't bring in a compliance person or something, or a human resources person, to fire Dino Gaudio. Thought that was complete garbage by the school to do that. But the bottom line is, if you don't get to the tournament 2 years in a row at Louisville, yeah, you're in trouble. You're in trouble.
Can they use the sanctions and all that? Is that an excuse still or no?
Well, yeah, I mean, it is, because it's still hanging over their head and they can't recruit at the highest level guys. Okay. So they're not, but they weren't, that wasn't going to be Chris Mack anyway. He wasn't going to get top 10 or 20 players. So, I think, again, you had moves that were made on the staff that might have, again, last year's team didn't have a ton of talent beyond the top 3 or 4 players. Okay. And the other thing is, listen, to me, the biggest problem is their front court right now. Jalen Withers has been atrocious compared to what I thought he was. Like I was to practice and I'm like, this kid could be should be their best player. He's got upside. He could be a pro. He has not been good. He's been very disappointing this year. And again, if you don't
have good point guard play. Same thing with Samuel Williamson. Like those were the two guys. Recruit. Yeah, those are the two guys. He was a McDonald's All-American. He was more than a top 50 recruit.
Though. I think they knew this year Williamson wasn't going to be what people thought he was going to be coming out of high school. But I thought they think, they had enough. They had enough. Well, their shooters aren't making shots, right? Like,
yes,
Noah Locke wasn't making shots, and Matt Cross wasn't making shots. And then you've got point guards that aren't. It's just all over the place right now. So, yes, to answer the question, like, it's a mess right now at Louisville, a mess.
See, this is why I like being on with Stadium Insider Jeff Goodman, because I can speculate till the cows come home about whether his job's in jeopardy. But you have a little more inside intel. I'm just a guy. On the court coming into the year, I was like, I kind of like some of the disparate parts that Louisville has. Just putting them together and finding a star and getting offensive execution has not happened. The shot making has been really, really poor. I think that's kind of the first thing that they have to solve, because then you get better floor spacing, and they just don't have any of that right now. It's trouble in paradise in Louisville for sure.
Yeah, and I don't think that it helps that I think very highly of Luke Murray as an X's and O's guy, right? And I think that not having him on the bench is definitely something that hurts them as well. Their offense this year went from I think they were 92nd in KenPom last season and now they're 161st in KenPom.
Well, he brought in Ross McMains, a guy from overseas, from Europe, that we met in the summer. I think you met him. Did you meet him with me, Rob?
No, he gave me the blow by.
The Heisman. Yeah, well, everybody gives you the blow by.
I did. I am used to it at this point, man.
Yeah. So they brought in somebody. Chris brought in somebody from overseas that he thought was going to completely change the offense. And the bottom line is still you need point guard play to be able to run a really good offense.
When I watched them earlier, I tweeted this at the time. They look like they're thinking about the next move. Like, where do I cut? Where do I pass? There's no like thinking to score. It's like, I've got to move it on and then go cut, where you want to naturally catch the ball and think about scoring. And it's just not really in their mind yet, because I don't think the system that they've installed is fluid or natural to them yet.
Yeah, it's not pretty, and it should never be pretty when you get blown out by Pitt, who is Pitt is Pitt. All right, so
Pitt is Pitt. Pitt is Pitt, and Pitt is not the Pitt of Ben Howland or Jamie Dixon either. Pitt is garbage. It's not your older right now.
It's not your older brother's Pitt. I do want to circle back on one thing you mentioned. That if you combined all three of Louisville's point guards, you might actually have like one real point guard. I can't tell you how many times. Yeah, one good point guard. I can't tell you how many times we said that about the 3-man weave. If you combine
Oh,
those three.
come on. I didn't see that coming at all, and I should have.
Neither.
This is
Neither.
absolute garbage.
Yeah, he does that. He does that. He just kind of sneak attacks.
Oh
God.
man, that was hey, come on, that was pretty good. Listen, this is the Field of 68 After Dark. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching on Twitter, please share, please hit that like button, please leave a comment. All of that stuff really.
And we're going to be on Sirius starting. Tell them we're going to be on Sirius starting Monday.
I was about to get to that.
Right,
Can you let me finish my reset, please? We're going to be on Sirius XM, 11 p.m. Eastern time, every single night during the college basketball season. It's channel 84, the ESPNU station. All right, guys, we had 6 teams that were ranked lose to unranked opponents, and that does not include Oregon, who is currently up 30-19 at number 5 USC, who is probably the most overrated team in the history of college basketball right now. By the way,
I said that too. I said that a while ago. Thank you.
You did. So the 6 were Oklahoma State beat Baylor, Northwestern beat Michigan State in East Lansing, Arkansas beat LSU in Baton Rouge, Kansas State beat Texas Tech, Marquette beat Seton Hall, and Mississippi State beat Alabama. So let me ask you guys this, not including USC, because I think we all kind of agree there. Who are you most concerned about, Jim, out of that group of teams that I just mentioned? And you know what? Let's throw Baylor out. We just had a long conversation about Baylor.
Yeah, we can throw Baylor out, but I'm still going green. I'm concerned about Michigan State, man. That team, like game after game, they look pretty uninspired. They haven't figured out the offensive pecking order at all. You get a cold night from Max Christie, and suddenly they lose to Northwestern without Pete Nance.
Right.
This is that Northwestern team that lost at home to Maryland in overtime. Like, that is not a great loss at all. And they'd almost lost at Northwestern. The High Point game wasn't really impressive. Like they've just been struggling lately. I was really high on them coming out of the Atlantis tournament. I was like, okay, Bingham's the shot blocker, Walker's emerging as point guard, but they haven't really been able to put it together. I know the unscripted guys can probably speak to it more, but Jeff, to me, that's the team that it has the most alarm bells going off.
Yeah, I guess I felt like this was the Michigan State we thought we'd see. Maybe not one that would lose at home to a Northwestern team without Pete Nance, but a team that wasn't going to be ranked 10th. Like, I don't think anybody thought before this season, we thought they would be winning 9 straight and going all the way to number 10 nationally. You know, at one point, really after the Champions Classic, Rob, we talked about this in the hallway. We were like, they don't have a star. They don't have a point guard. How good can Izzo make this team? What's the ceiling for this team? Might be, yeah, maybe he gets in the Sweet 16 because he's Tom Izzo. But frankly, there's a lot of holes with this team. And I do think it starts with taking care of the ball. And again, point guard play, like Tyson Walker, he was decent. I mean, he had 8 assists, but
you know what the biggest issue is? They don't have that dude.
Well,
right?
we know
like,
that. Yes.
Yeah.
We know that.
And that can really limit you in a game where, like, Northwestern played well, man. Like they were tougher than Michigan State in this game. And they were, believe it or not, they had a good game plan defensively. They were able to kind of take Michigan State out of what they wanted to do. And they didn't have anyone, Michigan State that is, that could go out and make a play, especially on the perimeter. When your offense is, all right, let's throw it into Julius Marble and see what happens. Like, that's when you know, like, yeah, you know what, we might be kind of limited on the offensive end of the floor.
And they
no
have a lot of
disrespect to Julius Marble.
Right.
No,
right.
See that? I just said something wildly disrespectful. No disrespect to Julius Marble.
See, you learned.
If that's your guy,
you learned from me. You learned from me how to disrespect a guy with basically the precursor that I'm not disrespecting you, but I really am. I'm sorry. You know,
it's all about the caveat. Yep. It's all about the caveat.
It's terrible. But you're right. You're right. Like, this Michigan State team, throw them in a hat with, you know, Ohio State and some of those other, you know, I think we can admit Purdue and Illinois right now look like the class of the Big Ten. And then there's probably 5 or 6 other teams. Well, maybe not now, because Maryland's certainly not in that group where we thought they were in the preseason. But, you know, there's probably 4 or 5 other teams that you could throw in a hat and on any given day. I want to see what Ohio State looks like when they get a healthy Justice Sueing back. That's what I'll say. Because
are they?
That's Is that
at
happening?
some point? Yes, I think they will sooner rather than later. I think he'll be back here in the next couple of weeks, and all they need him. Let's face it. What's Ohio State going to be? They're going to be a 4 to a 6 seed probably at the end of the day. So come March, as long as Justice Suing has had a month. If he can come back by February 1st and have a month before he starts to play in the Big Ten tournament, they'll be fine. They'll be fine.
Yeah. You know who I'm the most worried about out of that group? It's LSU.
Ooh.
I just think that they are so.
They don't have Pinson, though, but they didn't have Pinson today.
But even with Pinson, they're just so limited on the offensive end of the floor. Look, they are legitimately great defensively. Like Tari Eason is a monster, but so much of what they do is overwhelming teams that aren't great on the ball, forcing turnovers against teams that aren't anywhere near as athletic as them, being able to get out and transition and scoring easy baskets. Like they live on the pick six layups, right? Like that's what they do. And what happens is if you can get them in a half court situation, if you can not turn the ball over, if you can make shots against them, it just kind of, it makes you very limited. They are this year's example of why I don't trust teams that are pressing teams in March Madness, because they rely on other teams making mistakes. And the best teams in college basketball have great point guard play. And what do you do when you have great point guard play? You do not make mistakes.
But
so
did anybody think LSU was this great team? I mean, I know they had vaulted themselves up into a top 25. It's like Iowa State. I mean, does anybody really think Iowa State's going to do major damage in March? Did anybody think LSU was that good? No.
I mean, there were people that were talking about them as being someone that could win the SEC. 7 days ago, you had LSU ranked second in the SEC and Kentucky ranked fifth in the SEC.
Third. I think I had third. No,
you second.
You find me the proof.
Either way, you had Kentucky fifth. You had
Dauster doesn't have receipts. He doesn't. He just makes shit up.
If you really want me to go find it, I will go find it.
Yes, but I would like you to find it.
You are wrong on this one. You had. I just found it. LSU was second. I just found it.
There we go. Right.
LSU was second. Unbelievable.
Rob, you know how many points LSU had with 9 minutes left today?
Not a lot.
They had 56, right? And they finished with 58. That is absolutely terrible. 2 points, final 9 minutes. I think like Pinson matters. He's a quality kind of shit disturber. Like he makes things happen on both ends of the court, but if he's that important,
disturber.
Where you're
I like that. Xavier Pinson is a quality shit disturber.
Absolutely.
Dagan, can we tweet that out now, please?
We always said that about Jacob Young for Rutgers. Just like they've got a bunch of guys, and then they need a shit disturber to come in and kind of just make stuff happen, and that's what he does. But I mean, if he's that important, where everything falls off to the point that they can't score against an Arkansas team that's had some issues of its own, then the issues are more than Xavier Pinson. They're more inherent with the team and the offense.
They couldn't score before him. Listen, they couldn't score before him. So I'm not saying there was he's the end all be all. I'm just saying I didn't think they were that good to begin with. And then you lose a starter who's your point guard, who's tough as shit. I think that makes you very, very vulnerable. And Arkansas wasn't quite as bad as they had been playing. And really, we're playing loose today. They've got nothing to lose at this point. Nobody's expecting anything from them.
Yeah. All right. Let me ask you guys about Alabama really quick before we move on, because they have now lost 3 in a row. They got blown out at Missouri. They gave up 92 points to a Missouri team that was outside the top 200 in offensive efficiency when they did that. They lost at home to Auburn in a game where they actually, made a run late. They were kind of getting run out of the gym earlier on that night. And then they lost tonight at Mississippi State by 78-76. Jim, how concerned are you about the Tide?
A little concerned. The defense isn't there to keep the floor like it was last year. And we had that discussion about Baylor earlier and their small guards. I think that is the exact same problem that Alabama has. Last year, their maestro, the guy that created everything, was a 6'8" point forward that could get in the lane and distribute to everybody. Now it's a 6-foot guy in Quinterly he doesn't have quite the same passing angles. He can't make the same reads that Jones could at his size. And the shooting's not quite as good, So there's just a lot of things that are a little bit a notch below where they were last year. And that's why we're seeing them as like a top 25-ish team rather than a 2 seed and a threat to make a run.
Herb Jones, man, just indispensable. Just in every single way, Herbert Jones was the guy who brought Alabama together last year, right? You mentioned it as the versatile kind of point guard that we never thought would be a point guard. But on the other end of the court, he was even more valuable. He was a lockdown defender. You could put him on 1 through 5, and that allowed them to be able to switch everything. And honestly, he held the rest of the team accountable defensively. They don't have anybody who can do that now.
Yeah.
So I read you? Go ahead, Jim.
I think Juwan Gary can do that like 1 through 5 stuff, but on offense, he can't drive and create the way Jones can. So like it's having guys that are specialists rather than the whole versatile monster that Jones was.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what it was. He could do everything. And if you needed to go play like big, you could play him at the point. And also like John Petty was a really, really good defender. The lineups they had last year, there were times when Jaden Shackelford was the smallest guy on the floor. There are times now where Jaden Shackelford is playing the 3. So right now, Alabama is 11-6 overall. They are 2-3 in the SEC. I'm going to read you their next 6 games. They are home for LSU, home for Missouri, at Georgia, home for Baylor, at Auburn, home for Kentucky. They could look up on February 6th and be sitting here at 13-10 overall and 4
better be 14-9.
You count Missouri as a win? Come on, they already lost to him once.
Good point. I mean, they better win their next 3. Everybody beats Georgia, even Stack and Vandy. So to me, they better win their next 3. If they can win the next 3, you go 3, then you're playing the next 3, Baylor, Auburn, and Kentucky. Honestly, you win one of those 3, you're fine. So they got to they got to start with LSU at home. You're going to get Missouri at home. You should beat Georgia on the road. If they win those 3, they're back. They're feeling good about themselves, which is something I think this group needs. I don't think this group's mental toughness is nearly like last year's.
Yeah. All right. So this is the Field of 68 After Dark. My name is Rob Dauster. I'm joined by Jim Root from the 3-Man Read and Stadium Insider, Jeff Goodman. We are going to be on SiriusXM starting on Monday night, 11 p.m. We will be on the ESPNU channel. That is channel 84 on SiriusXM. If you're watching this on YouTube right now, please hit that like button. Please comment. Please jump in the chat. All of that interaction really does help the channel and help grows our network. All right. Really quick, I do want to talk to you guys about the teams that we do not think are getting enough attention in college basketball right now. Goodman, you know what, Jim, I'm going to go to you first on this one.
All right, I will start it off. Yeah, I'm going to the Big East. I know John Fant is probably going to be just brokenhearted that he couldn't get some of this Big East chatter going, but I think Marquette's the team we got to talk about. They have now cracked the top 50 at KenPom. They've won a bunch in a row in the Big East, a couple blowouts in there. They beat Seton Hall today. It's like a definite tournament team right now. And, early on we thought, okay, great home dog win against Illinois. Like that's just kind of Marquette's going to do that once in a while this year, but they're getting to the point where they're consistent. Iguodaro has really emerged as like an offensive threat as a big man. Morcell had a career high today. He's shooting the ball for him a little bit. I just love what Marquette has been able to put together. They're feisty. They kind of embody exactly what Shaka is. And that's like, he wasn't able to do that at Texas. And now at Marquette, he's kind of found that underdog mentality again. And I just think the Golden Eagles are on the rise right now.
According to Jeff Goodman, they are not an NCAA tournament team. Jeff,
I said that before today's win. Again. Here, I always have to try to explain myself because you take me out of context. You are the king of screwing me because you take me out of context, use whatever you want to try to make your point instead of, trying to be just a good human being who says it the way I said it.
Facts don't matter.
Yeah, who needs facts? We're all about content here. Jeff Goodman, I'm tweeting this out.
Who do you got?
Jeff Goodman just said, "You are the king of screwing me." That's what he just said.
That's after dark content right there.
Rob, who do you got?
I'm going with Oregon right now, and it's not. Well, it's partly because
I kind of like that.
They are really beating up on USC right now. And look, they were atrocious earlier on the season. Like they have some horrific losses. They got blown out. I think they lost by 32 to a BYU team. They got blown out by Gonzaga. They lost by 29 to Houston. It was ugly. It was ugly stuff. But we know that there's talent on this roster. I don't think anyone would argue that. And I think what we've seen is that, one, Will Richardson has kind of figured this thing out and figured out how he can be an impactful league guard. The same thing with Jacob Young. I think that Dana Altman is kind of realizing the ways that he can utilize those two to make him be as impactful as possible. And I had this stat the other night. Oregon, when Will Richardson scores in single figures, is 1-4 this season. The only win that they have when he scores in single digits is against Chaminade at whatever they called the Maui this year in Las Vegas. The Jim Root Invitational is what I'm going to
go with.
He's already got 15 tonight. Like when he gets going, he is the perfect kind of lead guard, scoring guard that Dana Altman's offenses thrive with. Think about Joseph Young. Think about Tyler Dorsey. Think about players like that. He's also got some size to him. They could do some of the stuff that they did with Dylan Brooks, with Will Richardson. So I think that this Oregon team, they're going to have a horrible seed. They're probably going to end up as like a 7, 8, 9 seed. And I'll tell you what, I do not want to be the 2 seed in the region that has Oregon somewhere at the other side of the bracket.
Yeah, some jamoke on 3manweave.com picked them to go to the Final Four in the preseason. That may or may not have been me. And so going that bold with the Ducks made me jump as far off the bandwagon when they started playing poorly. And so now I got to dive all the way back in. This is what I was hoping to see preseason. I thought there was talent there. And man, it has come together. If they sweep the LA trip on 2 teams that were supposed to be like the clear, unassailable top 3 of the league, the Ducks are for real as a contender out of that conference.
No doubt. You know who else is a contender? Maybe not to win the Big East, but to be better than Marquette in the Big East is Villanova. I mean, Xavier. I'm sorry, Xavier. Their only losses, so 2 to Villanova and 1 to Iowa State at Barclays. Those are their only 3 losses. They haven't had Zach Fremantle healthy yet, like 100%. He missed the first 6 games with a broken foot, but they got wins against Ohio State, Marquette. They beat Creighton today. They Virginia Tech on a neutral court. And again, I like them because I think the pieces fit together, right? You got 2 really good bigs and Fremantle and Nunge, and they're different. You can actually play those guys together because Nunge is able to step out. You're not great defensively, but you could do it if you need to. Scruggs is a 5th-year guy. Nate Johnson can make shots. They got, I think, 6 guys averaging between 8 and 13 points. So they're veterans. I feel like they're completely not underrated. I guess undervalued would be a better word for Xavier. And again, to me, if Fremantle can get back closer to what he needs to be, I mean, this was a guy who put up huge numbers last year, and most people thought would be an all first team Big East guy this year. And he's still getting there.
Yep. All right. So we were able to catch up with Jeff Goodman's guy, Zach Fremantle, earlier on this afternoon after the Musketeers landed an 80-73 win over, was it Creighton? I can't even remember. It feels like that game was played 3 days ago.
Yes.
Now let me welcome on to the Field of 68 After Dark, Xavier Center, Zach Fremantle, coming off an 80-73 win over Creighton at home. Zach, you had 13 points, 11 more tonight. How you feeling, man?
I'm feeling pretty good. It was my first real game where I got a good amount of minutes. I got to go up and down a lot, so it felt really good tonight.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. You played 33 minutes tonight. You are coming off of a foot injury. You guys had a little bit of a COVID pause and missed some time there. So how did it feel to kind of get back out there and play real minutes again?
It felt really good. It's been a while. It's been a real long process. So to be able to go out and do that, help my team get the win, it felt great.
All right. So Zach, how close are you to 100%? You still, I know you missed a couple that normally you would make. How close are you to getting back to full strength?
I mean, it's definitely getting there, definitely trending in the right direction. If I had to put a number on it, I'd probably say around 85, 90%. There's no real pain there. It's just still a little discomfort.
You guys brought in Jack Nunge during the offseason, and you guys have actually played some kind of minutes together now that you are back. So how has it been kind of adjusting to having another big guy on the floor with you, and how has it been meshing with the player as good as he's been?
I mean, it's always a process. You got to figure out your own strengths, his strengths, how you can complement each other. But I feel like we were able to do that tonight. We were able to, especially defensively, we were able to use me and his size. We were able to get a lot of rebounds and do what we had to do tonight.
I've said it to people. I think you guys are vastly underappreciated in terms of what you can be when you get back to 100%. You have veterans, you have point guard play, you have toughness, you have shooters, you have two bigs, like Rob said. You know, your first 2 years, you didn't go to the NCAA tournament. Why do you think this team can be so dangerous come March?
I think a big part of it's the chemistry we have. There's no cliques going on. There's no people, some people over here, some people over there. We all on the same boat, going the same direction, and we all just want to win. So I think we can be special.
So what a lot of people don't know about you, you're a Teaneck, New Jersey guy, the home of ABCD camp. You probably weren't even born when last time they had ABCD, but it was awesome. But you used to go down to Rucker Park.
Oh man, I was having a much better night until this kid from Cal Baptist just pretty much ended my chance of winning that bet. Anyway, we're going to go do 3 cheers before we get out of here tonight. What we do to end these shows is have a little toast. We all got a little beverage over here, so we're gonna have a little toast to players, coaches, teams, anything that you wanna toast. So Goodman, I'm going to you first on this one.
All right, it was tough for me. I was going to go with Juice Hill from Murray State. He had 36 points, 8 from 11 from 3. Huge win at Belmont. I was thinking about going a little Northwestern for Chris Collins, who's on the hot seat. And without Pete Nance, we talked about that at the Breslin Center. I'm going with a coach. And I'm going with the coach who passed away today, Joe B. Hall, former Kentucky coach, died at 93 years old today. And if you didn't know, he won the national title in 1978. He succeeded Adolph Rupp. He was his assistant for 7 years and then succeeded him, coach for 13 years at Kentucky from 72 to 85. And Rob, can you tell me the best player on the national title team in 1978?
I cannot.
Goose Givens. Goose. Bring the Goose home. Goose Givens, Rick Roby, who played for the Celtics. He was like a big stiff who backed up Robert Parrish for the Celtics. And Kyle Macy, who could really shoot and does some TV for ESPN, I think, now. So Joe B. Hall, 93 years old, young, passed away today.
Salute. R.I.P. R.I.P. Jim, go ahead.
All right. I'm not. Well, I thought you were going to go first, so I was going to follow up. But my best bet this morning on our show was the Rice Marshall over. And so I am cheersing to coaches who aren't sure when the game is over or not and just keep fouling. Thank you, Dan D'Antoni, for fouling down 10 with 15 seconds left to get us there in the over. Cheers to that.
Cheers to Dan D'Antoni.
Dan D'Antoni, who loves to score points. That's
Absolutely.
why.
Absolutely.
Yep. I'm going to give a shout out to Darius McGee. He popped off for 48 points. He scored 37 in the second half to lead the Liberty Flames to a comfort behind win at Florida Gulf Coast at FGCU in Fort Myers today. So I'm going to shout him out, but that's not my cheers. My cheers is Mike Boynton. My cheers is everybody on that Oklahoma State roster. My cheers is everybody within that basketball program. The people that pay attention to this content in this channel know how I feel about the NCAA's decision to uphold the NCAA tournament.
It was
ban
bullshit.
on them. It's horrible. It's horrible. I could not possibly hate it more. I do not need to go on that rant. I do not need to ruin my Saturday night by yelling about it more. So we're going to celebrate here. Mike Boynton, leads those dudes into Waco. They knock off the number one team in the country. They knock off the reigning champions. They have a chance to really, celebrate this college basketball season. And when you are banned from the postseason, a lot of times you don't really get a chance to do that. So to Mike Boynton, to Oklahoma State Cowboys, to the three-man weave, to Jim Root, to Jeff Goodman, to our producer, Dagan Hughes, who tolerates all three of us, which is not the easiest thing to do. This has been the Field of 68 After Dark.